Most people today believe anger is something that happens to them. As if it arrives uninvited. As if it is forced upon them by other people, by situations, by noise, by pressure. They believe their emotions are reactions, not decisions. They believe their inner state is controlled by whatever is happening around them. And because of this belief, they spend their lives responding instead of leading, reacting instead of choosing, defending instead of mastering themselves. A Stoic lives differently. A Stoic does not treat anger as an accident. He does not see emotional chaos as normal. He does not excuse loss of control by saying, "That's just how I am." The Stoic understands something most people never fully grasp. Emotion is not an event. Emotion is a judgment. Anger does not arrive on its own. It is invited in by interpretation. And the same mind that creates anger can choose not to. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about suppressing feeling. It is not about pretending nothing affects you. It is about control. It is about discipline. It is about character. When you stop handing your inner world to external forces, everything changes. Your language sharpens. Your presence steadies. Your reactions slow. Your respect rises. Today, we will walk through 6 Stoic principles that show you how to reach that state. 6 principles that strip anger of its authority and return command back to where it belongs, your mind. By the end, you will not feel motivated. You will feel grounded. Clear. Unshaken. Before we begin, pause for a moment. Comment below this simple affirmation. I choose control over reaction. Not for visibility. Not for performance. But as a quiet commitment to the standard you are setting for yourself. Anger is not caused by what happens. It is caused by how the mind explains what happens. This principle alone dismantles most emotional suffering. Most people believe emotion follows events automatically. They assume the sequence is fixed. Something happens, and emotion appears. Stoicism rejects this idea entirely. Between what occurs and what you feel, there is a judgment. A silent interpretation. An internal statement about meaning. That statement decides everything. If the mind labels something as disrespect, anger follows. If it labels something as threat, tension follows. If it labels something as loss, pain follows. Change the interpretation, and the emotional outcome changes with it. This is why anger feels convincing. The mind presents its interpretation as fact. Not opinion. Not assumption. Fact. And once accepted as fact, the body responds automatically. The Stoic trains himself to notice this process. Not after the emotion has taken control, but at the moment interpretation forms. This is discipline at the level of thought. You are not asked to deny reality. You are asked to separate reality from narrative. Reality is what occurs. Narrative is what the mind adds. Most suffering is not caused by events. It is caused by the story layered on top of them. When you understand this, responsibility returns to you. And responsibility is not a burden. It is power. Because if interpretation creates emotion, then interpretation can be chosen. This does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You stop reacting to mental assumptions. You stop letting unexamined thoughts decide your state. You stop confusing feeling with truth. Anger loses its authority the moment you see it as a product of judgment rather than fate. I control the meaning, and the meaning controls the emotion. Power is lost in haste. The faster the reaction, the weaker the position. This is true emotionally, psychologically, and socially. Impulse is not strength. Impulse is exposure. Anger thrives on speed. It feeds on immediacy. It requires no reflection, no structure, no discipline. Stoicism teaches the opposite approach. Delay is not avoidance. Delay is command. The mind that reacts instantly has already surrendered leadership. It has allowed the external moment to dictate internal movement. Speed favors instinct. Slowness favors reason. This is not about hesitation from fear. It is about choosing response over reflex. When reaction is immediate, emotion is in control. When reaction is delayed, the mind regains its position. The Stoic understands that time creates distance. Distance creates clarity. Clarity restores authority. A delayed response is not empty. It is intentional. It allows emotion to rise without being obeyed. It allows awareness to return before action begins. This principle reshapes behavior at the root. You stop being pulled. You stop being rushed. You stop being dragged into emotional tempo set by others. The person who controls pace controls outcome. When you refuse to be rushed emotionally, manipulation fails. Provocation loses leverage. Noise fades. Slowness becomes a form of quiet dominance. Not because it overpowers others, but because it protects your center. Discipline begins the moment you stop reacting on demand. What cannot rush me cannot control me. Anger often comes from misplacement of identity. When you allow external behavior to define internal worth, detachment disappears. Emotion becomes personal. Everything feels directed. Every disturbance feels targeted. Stoicism corrects this error. The Stoic separates self from stimulus. He understands that behavior reflects inner states, not external targets. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means clarity. Clarity that recognizes the boundary between what belongs to you and what does not. Your values belong to you. Your judgments belong to you. Your responses belong to you. Others' actions do not. When you internalize this distinction, anger weakens. Because anger depends on ownership. It depends on the belief that something external has entered your inner domain without permission. Detachment revokes that permission. You stop absorbing what was never yours to carry. You stop personalizing what was never personal. You stop defending what was never threatened. This form of detachment does not harden the mind. It stabilizes it. The Stoic does not need to distance himself from the world. He remains present without becoming entangled. When identity is anchored internally, external disturbances lose gravity. Emotion no longer dictates posture. Behavior no longer rewrites self-image. You remain intact. My identity is internal, and my peace is protected. Anger often arises from surprise. Not surprise at events, but surprise at reality itself. The unprepared mind expects harmony, order, and alignment. When reality diverges, frustration follows. Stoicism removes this illusion. Preparation is not pessimism. It is alignment with truth. Human behavior is inconsistent. Judgment varies. Awareness differs. When you expect perfection, disturbance is inevitable. When you expect imperfection, calm becomes natural. Preparation shifts emotional posture before the moment arrives. You no longer interpret disruption as injustice. You no longer interpret difficulty as attack. You see it as reality expressing itself. This mental readiness removes shock. And shock is the gateway to anger. Preparedness stabilizes expectation. Stabilized expectation stabilizes emotion. The Stoic does not wait for the world to behave correctly. He conditions himself to remain steady regardless. This is not resignation. It is strength through foresight. When the mind is prepared, anger has nowhere to land. Nothing surprises a prepared mind. Silence is not emptiness. It is containment. Most people speak to release tension. They respond to discharge emotion. They react to regain comfort. The Stoic uses silence differently. Silence becomes a boundary. A filter. A stabilizer. When words are withheld, emotion settles. When expression pauses, clarity emerges. This is not suppression. Suppression hides emotion. Silence disciplines it. Silence creates space between feeling and action. In that space, control returns. The Stoic understands that not every impulse deserves a voice. Not every reaction deserves expression. Not every disturbance requires response. Silence protects dignity. It preserves posture. It maintains authority. When you do not rush to speak, you remain centered. When you remain centered, your presence communicates more than words ever could. Silence is not absence. It is command without noise. Restraint speaks louder than reaction. Anger feels natural because it has been practiced. What is repeated becomes automatic. What is automatic becomes identity. Stoicism teaches that emotion is trained through choice. Each moment of restraint strengthens discipline. Each moment of reaction strengthens impulse. There is no neutrality. Every response reinforces a direction. Discipline is not built through comfort. It is built through friction. The mind learns control by choosing it under pressure. Not once. Repeatedly. Over time, emotional reflexes change. The urge weakens. The pause lengthens. The center holds. This is not suppression. It is conditioning. The Stoic trains response the way others train skill. Through repetition. Through awareness. Through commitment. Eventually, anger stops feeling natural. Control does. I train discipline until it becomes instinct. True strength is not measured by how intensely you feel, but by how precisely you choose. The disciplined mind does not deny emotion. It decides whether emotion deserves obedience. Mastery begins the moment. Reaction stops being automatic. You now see the structure clearly. Anger is not an event. It is an interpretation. Speed does not protect power. It dissolves it. Detachment does not remove humanity. It preserves identity. Preparation does not harden the mind. It steadies it. Silence is not weakness. It is controlled force. Discipline is not discovered. It is trained. Together, these principles form a single posture. A posture of command. Not dominance over others. Dominance over self. When these principles are applied consistently, emotional chaos fades. Not because the world changes, but because your position within it does. You stop reacting. You start choosing. This is Stoic control. Quiet. Grounded. Unshaken. Tomorrow, something will test you. Not to defeat you, but to reveal your training. When it happens, pause. Choose one principle. Apply it deliberately. Do not aim for perfection. Aim for control. Comment below which principle you will practice first. Not as a declaration to others, but as an agreement with yourself. If this message helped clarify your direction, share it with someone who needs stability more than motivation. Until next time, remain disciplined. Remain grounded. Remain unshaken.